Welcome to an IEXIST podcast. Our entire mission can be summed up in one phrase: becoming all that we are. It is our belief that fulfillment doesn't come from changing into things you aren't, but rather from becoming everything that you already are. And ultimately, we're here to press and empower you to lead lives that are full of fulfillment. We've dedicated this specific podcast to the dream, not to having the dream or even talking about the dream, but to living the dream. The reality is that there's a stark difference between having a dream and manifesting one. Here you'll gain insight and wisdom keys directly from some of the water walkers of our generation, dream practitioners, those who have decided to tread paths where there were none, to step out into only what they could see. Come take a peek into the minds of some who, from within, create our world's most magnificent realities. I'm the creator and host, Brian Farr, and this is the Living the Dream podcast. All right, hello and welcome to episode 24 of Living the Dream, the podcast. I am your host, Brian Farr, and as always, I'm super glad that you've joined me today. I want to thank and show appreciation to all of my consistent listeners, and for all of you who have not listened to every single one of the podcasts so far, I want to say even if the title or the description doesn't look that appealing to you or sound that appealing to you, I'm promising you there is valuable, great information in all of them. And I can guarantee you that you'll be able to pull something from it that can contribute to your daily life. And so go back and listen to those if you have not. If you're a newcomer, if this is your first time listening, welcome and thank you. Listen, I want to jump straight into our subject matter for today. But before I do, I want to say if you have not followed me on social media yet, and those specific platforms would be Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, you can do that by searching the name Brian Farr, BRYANPHARR. I want to let you know that you are missing out on some of the recent releases that I've had to come out. And also, you may miss out on a few future releases. I've recently dropped some apparel, some new clothing that is a part of our ongoing initiative to propel purpose, and also part of our initiative as the IEXIST Nation to be the unbelievable to the world around us. So if you want to participate in that initiative, one quick, easy way is to get the clothing and you'll receive instruction on how to do that. And again, I also don't want you to miss some of the future things we'll be pushing out in the coming days. So I appreciate you for doing that in advance. All right, let's jump straight into what I have to say today. I want to start by saying that for as much as I talk about purpose and finding out who you really are and aligning yourself with not only that identity, but with that purpose, there is a secondary issue that falls right in line with those of identity and purpose that actually gave me a lot of trouble for many years. And because I didn't understand how vital or crucial this aspect of our journeys was, it took me a long time to solve what I find is a major issue throughout our world today. And that issue is positioning. And what I mean by an issue of positioning is that not only is it absolutely necessary, absolutely crucial that you know and be in line with your identity and also the intention behind why it is that you're living, your purpose, in order for you to live a fulfilled life, it is also just as crucial, just as necessary for you to be in alignment with and essentially be playing the right position in life for success to manifest, for fulfillment to be real. Now, before your mind begins to assume that I'm saying that the key to success in life is for you to make sure you're in a high position at some office or within some type of governmental structure or system, or that you need to go after the highest positions known to man in order to feel successful, in order to be successful, or in order to feel fulfilled, because that is absolutely not what I'm saying at all. Let me say it to you this way. It can be completely possible to have the right gift, to be the right man or woman for the job, to have something so valuable that it's needed all around the world. But if you are playing the wrong position with that gift, with that idea or those ideas, with those skills or whatever, you could completely be doing yourself and the world around you a disservice. Not because you're wrong about the gift you have, or even that you're wrong about your purpose for being here, You could be right about both of those things or all of those things and still be completely mismanaging them because you're playing as a person the wrong position. So here's the quickest example I can give. So let's say that you are a gifted, anointed, or chosen cook who has millions of recipes, thousands of ideas, and I know I'm being exaggerative with the numbers, but let's say you just came out of the womb knowing how to cook as soon as you could hold a pan. 4 years old, you begin to concoct meals using your easy bake oven or whatever you had at your disposal to be able to cook. And I know this is someone's real story because this is just the way life actually works. It's why I talk about people having gifts and things like that. Because when you do, this is how it works. It's not something that you had to learn how to do. It's something that you come from the womb knowing how to do. Doesn't mean it doesn't need to be developed over time, but it is something that you have an innate knowledge on how to do. So you come out knowing exactly what to do with a pot or a pan, and you begin to get a little older, and now you're marveling the family with seemingly just random ideas that come together and make Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holidays you may celebrate within your own home the best that they've ever been. Now everybody wants to come over and have a taste of your meals. And so you go into thinking about owning your own restaurant one day and what you would need to do to make that possible. You even go to culinary school to begin to get a type of accreditation that you feel may make you worthy to do things that you, in your mind, may not have been able to do without that accreditation through your schooling. You meet people, they love you, they enjoy your cooking. This is your gift. Your calling is to make people happy, even healthier, to get them on their feet and going through the vehicle of food. But let's say you go through all of that just to grow up and go work in a junkyard. And there's nothing wrong with working at a junkyard, but now we have a major problem because the gift that you have that is so valuable to a certain group of people in a certain predicament, in a certain circumstance, is now no longer worth a dime with how you've positioned it within a job at a junkyard, compacting trash. So you go from concocting culinary masterpieces to compacting trash and waste in a junkyard. Now, there's nothing wrong with your gift. It's still just as effective, just as refined from the work that you've put in over the years. You're still the cook that you were always intended to be. But now, because of where you are, you almost go from being highly respected to almost disregarded. The same gift and calling that almost had you at celebrity status, that was about to get you on the front of some culinary magazine, are now being looked at as almost worthless. The problem is not the gift or the calling, it's that you have it in the wrong place. This is a problem of positioning. And because they don't need your culinary skills on the junkyard to ensure that all of the tasks that need to be done there are actually being done, they're going to disregard that gift and that calling as if it was nothing, as if it means nothing, because in all actuality, in that predicament, it does mean nothing to them. As far as they know, it's not going to help them further their lives, get out of their situations, contribute to their success, and so they have no need for it and will treat them as such. It's not a personal thing. It's just that they don't need what you have, and that's okay. But what we're going to talk about today are problems with positioning. And this problem spans way outside of what you may think. It actually affects way more situations than you might believe. And that's why I referred to it earlier as a major issue throughout our world today. So I want to start by tackling this issue from a particular angle that's actually very closely related to the example that I just gave, involving purpose, passion, gifts, callings, and those being in the right place. Because I really do think, as I gave a little bit of a reference to earlier, that there are many of you who actually believe that the higher the position you have within an organizational hierarchy structure, the more successful you are. And that's not particularly true. The problem with that ideology is that it does not take into account that there are specific purposes, callings that people are meant to carry out, and that every individual has a part to play that would suit them best. So even in corporate America, in small business, in big business, in religious spaces, in the nonprofit arena, in governmental systems, things like that, That same truth echoes throughout all systems that there are and that can be, which essentially means that there is a such thing, I believe, as a wrong position and a right position for each individual to have, no matter which of these systems you may be a part of. And I'll give an even wider perspective later. But listen, although I do believe that all humans come from God or come from the Creator and all have the same intrinsic value, whether so-and-so likes you or not, or whether so-and-so appreciates you or not, whether your parents do or not, whether a boss does or not, whether your family does or not, whether a stranger does or not. We all have the same intrinsic value, which also points to the fact that no person is better than the next person. Although I believe that is absolutely true, it does not negate the fact that we are all made differently and in life will be valued for different things according to our callings and purpose. Now, we should all be respected and valued due to our just being made by God or made by the Creator. And because of the mere fact that we are all humans, we should respect one another based upon that premise anyway, regardless. But what will be valued about you will be part and due to how we are all individually wired. And we are wired differently and play different roles and positions in this life. And until you are aligned, I believe, with your person or your identity, your purpose or calling, and are in the proper position, you cannot be valued the way you are meant to, again, in this life. Again, that does not mean that you should not be respected or seen as valuable to other people. But the way that we are going to give value in this life is through our gifts and callings to one another, through our service, giving away that gift to others in a way that helps them succeed in their lives, whatever way that is. Some of us are going to bring joy to others through laughter. Some of us are going to bring witty ideas, inventions into the world. Some of us are going to protect, make others feel safe through security measures, things like that, and 1,000 other ways that I'm sure you can think of that we offer and provide services to one another as humans in this life. But again, we have to be sure that we are properly positioned to do so, because we've all seen the person who is gifted to bring joy and laughter to the people around them, but were literally chastised for that same gift and calling within a classroom because of the position they were playing as a student at the time, which was right. They were doing what they were taught to and supposed to do at that portion of their life, but it did not fit their calling in the moment necessarily. Of course, during breaks and lunch, and I'm sure in gym class or whatever activities didn't involve having to sit down and listen and just pay attention, that gift was welcome, I'm sure, by others. But in certain positions at a specific time, it was not welcome, and it was actually seen as a distraction and unhelpful to the group. So in the same way that that gift may not be as appreciated as it should until it's on a comedy club stage, etc., however it plays out, we need to ensure that we are aligning our purpose and identity with the proper positioning in life. So back to what I was saying about hierarchy, especially within organizations and things like that. Again, most of us believe that the higher the position we are in within these structures, the more successful we are. And we see that way of thought almost qualified in the payout structure, in which now we see some person that's at the head of an organization or top be paid millions of dollars, and someone who is at the lowest possible entry level job within the same organization only be paid dollars per hour. And so I can see how people rightly understand things that way, because to a certain degree, that's exactly what it looks like. But I would say that the more you align yourself or position yourself in a way that you can allow your gifts to flow to the world around you, the more successful you are. Because that is what's going to make the most value from your being be experienced by the world around you. So let me give you an example of this. There are people all over the world right now who have been so trained, so taught, so indoctrinated with the idea that they need to climb some hierarchical ladder in order to be successful. That the way for them to be successful was for them to be at the top of some hierarchical ladder, that they are literally abandoning their gift and their calling to go climb that ladder. right here, I want to tell you to go back and to listen to Killing the Climb if you have not already. And it'll talk a little bit more in depth about what I'm mentioning to you right now. But many of you will jump over your given aptitudes and intention for being here in this world just to be in competition with, join others in some rat race in which you're trying to get to the little bit of cheese at the top of an organization, or to get that little bit of money that's reserved for those at the top of this ladder, or to get the attention of whoever's at the top of the ladder as if they're going to do something for you. And some of you just do it for fame, to get on a stage without even being paid, to just have association with a particular group that doesn't even pay you, and will suffer lack due to the climb to be in association, because to you, that makes you feel like something or someone. Just the fame aspect of it. And fame does not denote effectiveness, by the way. Fame does not mean you're changing lives. It only means that you're being seen, possibly heard by a lot of people, but not always the case. So in all actuality, you're jumping over what will make you the most effective, the most world-changing in this life, only to join a race that may make you, in your mind, the most seen. But you will lose your effectiveness because you're jumping over your purpose and identity in order to be seen. And this, as I've stated in Killing the Climb, is not true success. This is not long-lasting success because you really aren't bringing value to the world. You're a placeholder for people who need to make themselves look good at the time. If you are jumping over your effectiveness in order to join a race or climb a ladder to be seen, you cannot truly be successful in life. And again, we wonder why. Once we get visible or in these specific places where we feel controlled and all this other stuff, a slew of other side effects that come from being in that type of position, why the success of it still feels so empty, because you're losing your effectiveness. You're actually honestly trading your gift, your purpose, your position for what looks like success, fame, but it's empty. It's a cloudy version and it's not real. Pseudo success is what I've called it in other podcasts. So check this out. What would actually happen if you embraced your purpose or your role to play, your giftings, who you are, and actually aligned yourself in the proper position, just like that cook in the first example should have by either opening up a restaurant or working as a culinary chef in someone's kitchen? What if you would do the same? What if you would align yourself with the position that would allow your gifts to flow to humanity? The miracle of that scenario is that not only would whatever success you gained be true, lasting, real success, but you would find that you could be more effective, more known, famous, whatever it is you are after in the pseudo way, more wealthy in doing what you are actually called to do. That's the magic of it all, that you could literally be a janitor by call. You had some type of gifting that made you the neat freak, the clean freak, the person that could clean every crevice without getting grossed out or whatever else would unqualify somebody else from being great at that job. You could have an eye for cleanliness. You could have the type of personality and humility that made people love you while you were doing it. And listen to this key. While you were doing it, it also fed you. It was almost this reciprocal interaction with you and your job, you and your work, in which the more you did it, the more it actually fed you. Without getting the paycheck, it actually excited you. It made you want to get up in the morning. It made you want to hurry up and get to the next location so that you could do it again. Again, if that was your gifting, your calling, you could actually be more effective, be more known, and be more wealthy than you would have if you would have jumped over that gifting and calling just because it didn't appeal to the masses in your mind, or you saw the CEO, CFO, whatever else ends with an O, getting more praise on some morning show. And so you desired that fame or whatever. If you would have skipped over your gift for whatever allure you saw in those things, you might have climbed your way, sucking up, doing whatever you had to do in order to get into a certain position and made six figures, a good six-figure number. But honestly, as a janitor, because that was your calling and gifting, If you were in the way of your gifting, the right positioning, I believe you could end up more wealthy as that person, as long as you worked your gift the proper ways, implemented certain systems that could get you that wealth. And that may be training others. That may be doing a lot of other things that could make you money outside of just cleaning a house, starting a business, etc., to where you could duplicate yourself in other people. You could end up more wealthy than you would have if you would have taken the CFO, CEO, COO, if you would have tried to climb in those positions. So the position in terms of the hierarchy does not denote your success or your effectiveness. It is all about placing your gift in its proper position to where it can flow out to humanity around you, so your value can spread through what it is that you do.
Writer, producer, artist, coach, and inspirational motivational speaker, Brian Farr takes us on a deep, retrospective, and introspective journey ranging from his childhood until life today that invokes the question, will I live a life of significance or one of safety? Filled with experience-gained wisdom and revelatory insights, A New Home dares its readers to ask themselves the hard questions concerning their need to fit in. How far will you go? And will all the efforts you've made be worth it in the end? This perspective-shifting discourse is a must-read, and through its hard-hitting yet relatable, tear-jerking, and even at points comical nature may prove to be more of a life-changing event than just a good Sunday morning read. Get your physical copy today at becomingallthatweare.com.
I'm reminiscent of a story that Steve Harvey told while I'm talking to you. And the story was about a friend he had, and I'll be real brief and quick about this story. Basically, he was saying that his friend growing up, all his friend wanted to do was to cut the grass. And him, meaning Steve Harvey, and the boy's other friends would go out often and ask him to come along on the weekends to, I don't know, party, have fun, whatever the situation was. And the boy so loved cutting the grass that that's all he wanted to do. Again, it was something that fed him as he was doing it. And he learned how to do little tricks by adjusting the blade, and he could put people's initials in their yards. And so he found a particular niche and things like that. But Steve said that they would pick on him a lot because all he wanted to do, or it seemed that he wanted to do, was to just cut grass. When they wanted to go out again and have fun, that's all he was doing. He was saying, I wanted to cut Miss So-and-so's yard or Mr. So-and-so's yard. I got to do it. I told him I was going to do it, whenever. And so what began as something that his friends could not understand about him, that they thought was whack, they didn't think it was anything to be proud of or be happy about, it ended up, long story short, being a business that I believe grows for him. I believe it's anywhere between $2 and $6 million a year. Now, again, of course, he had to implement certain structures. He began a business, again, began to duplicate himself and his skills and other people around him, made them accountable, and that widened the effect of what he could do as a person. But what I'm saying is him ignoring that gift, ignoring how he could be effective as a person, and jumping straight to this whole lie that people tell us all the time, that it's all about being at the top of an organization or being at the top of a nation or being at the top of a state, whatever the situation is. You're throwing your gifts away, tossing them to the side on behalf of a rat race within corporate America, etc. And you're not happy and you're not making as much as you could. Think about that guy. Even as a CFO somewhere, he might have been making 6 figures or more, depending on the size of the company and things like that. Not Apple, of course, or anything like that, or Amazon, I'm sure. It'd be way more. But I'm just saying, he's making more now than he would have in that particular position. And let me say this, even if he was at Apple, Google, who would have put him into the millions more than likely, had he been at the head of it, definitely if he somehow made it to the top of it, without that effectiveness, without that happiness that comes from his gift fueling him as he's doing it, it would make it not worth it. Again, there's another group of people who I'll say this. You feel like that you'll make less money as a person who operates in their gift and their calling and do what you're passionate about and how you would love to service the people around you. And you might actually be right. You feel like you would make less, but let me ask you this. Is you being out of position? Because there are side effects to that I'll talk about in a second. But you being out of place and the unhappiness that creates, the ineffectiveness that creates, is it worth it to stay there, make more money without the fulfillment or to change course, get outside of the rat race, do what your heart is calling you to do, and be happy and potentially make less. And I also want to mention this. Think about the fact that that boy at the time, cutting the grass, affected Steve Harvey so much. It taught him such a lesson that he's repeating the guy's story as a person that is often on TV today. Steve Harvey's everywhere. And guess what? That boy was so effective in what he did that Steve Harvey is using him for an example. So again, it's just a pure example of what I'm saying to you, how he's more known as a person who just got into his gift and was an effective person to the people around him, not only his clients, but to his friends. His bravery for doing what he was purposed to do became what motivated others to do the same. He's still mentioning his name to this day for the effect that he had on him by doing what he was called to do. As CFO Joe, we may have never heard of him, but again, him aligning himself, his gifting, his calling, putting it in a position that actually allowed him to spread his gift to the world around him, to serve others through his gifting, is what allowed him to have the reputation that he has today. All in all, it's not about the hierarchical climbs. Those often become distractions from your true happiness, your true calling, your true fulfillment. There are so many of you that would do better off just teaching, just singing, just doing hair, just becoming a pro athlete that ends up in the Olympics for a less popular sport, something that you need to train for year round. Some of you need to cook. Some of you need to do comedy. Some of you need to do an assortment of these things all at once and call it something different. Some of you need to invent things, but you're too caught up in this idea of wanting to be at the top of something, and you're too comfortable in your positions of power. You're too busy wanting to sit at the head of the table, or at least at the end where the head of the table is sitting, and you won't admit that you're not even effective there. You won't admit that you're not really getting anything done. You're just repeating the same things over and over again, hoping that no one discovers that you don't belong there because you don't know what you're doing anyway. I see this all the time with business owners, heads of churches, governmental positions, managers within it, whatever the situation is. And the truth is, you don't even trust me. You're like, yeah, I hear you, but I'm just going to hold on to my high position, keep being ineffective because you've gotten too comfortable with that position, and because you also don't agree that you're going to get more done if you would just get into your calling and your gifting. You would have to give up too much pride in order to do it. Some of us are better janitors than we are managers, but we don't think it's cool to be a janitor. And we don't think it's cool to do what our mother did or what our father did. We want to be a rapper. We want to be something that can be seen. And you're going to be more ineffective that way than anything. And again, this will only create the cycle of pseudo success where you'll tell people I have the position. You'll show pictures on Instagram online of you supposedly doing something that you're not called to do. And because that bothers me as a human, it's my mission to help you get out of that position and to position yourself properly for your purpose. Now listen to the way I just said that. Position yourself properly, because that's the way it's going to have to be. You cannot trust other people to do it. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. But before that, I do want to hit a couple other target areas that I believe there is a problem with positioning for many of us. First, let's zoom in a little bit using some of the same examples, but honing in on more micro examples of the same problem. I used CEO, CFO, COO, things like that a lot while I was talking up until this point. And then also things like janitor and things like that, trying to give you what often in people's minds are polar opposites. But again, that's a lie because we need to predicate our positions on purpose, not praise. But I want to talk about the way it is inside of organizations and things like that. More so when you're dealing with entry-level positions versus managers and things like that. Whether people want to admit it or not or point it out in their own lives, there are side effects to being in the wrong position. Not only does it have to do with you being unhappy or unfulfilled or ineffective, there's also things that come along with it like insecurity, feeling like you don't fit. Now, let me say this. A lot of people have been talking about things like imposter syndrome, a lot to where they're like people are being elevated to certain places and they feel like they don't belong there and things like that. And most people talk about it from an angle of worthiness, right? You have to get yourself to worthy so that you can get over the idea that you don't belong where life has pushed you. And I think for a particular person, for a particular case, that can very much so be true. I think that if you've dealt with, for instance, a level of poverty your entire life, and all of a sudden you operate in your gift and you come into a bunch of wealth, that it can almost feel so overwhelming in ways because you aren't used to it that you may not feel like it's yours. I've seen this happen too. So learning how to adjust to that new position of wealth, again, for instance, would be you adjusting in terms of feeling worthy and things like that. But there's also another side of it that I don't want to excuse to where people feel like imposters because they are. And you've put yourself in the position to do something that you're not gifted to do or not anointed, chosen to do. And you being chosen has more to do with who you are at the core, not where people have put you. It's more about what you've been designed to do before you knew who you were in this world. And in this case, when you're just improperly positioned, you should not be trying to get to worthy. You should be trying to get out of that position into the right position so that you don't have to feel insecure like an imposter because that's what you are. Again, all of my conversation is off of the premise that there is a such thing as being made for a particular thing. There are people who are in management positions who are not managerial by nature. What I am addressing is not a maturity issue because, yeah, sure, you can have someone who's gifted to be a manager and who's immature and they just need to grow up. Sure, all of that is true. But what I'm addressing is not that type of issue. There are people who are in creative positions who are not creative at all, in visionary roles who are not visionary at all, in positions that are supposed to be able to tell you where the company is going and cannot for the life of them because that's not the role they actually play in life. But because they wanted the visionary position for the allure of it, they'll put themselves there. Because they wanted the creative position, they'll put themselves there. Because they wanted the management or managerial position, they'll put themselves there, expecting to be able to get something done as if anybody can do anything, when the truth is you are wired a particular way when you get here. I think Jay-Z put it this way in one of his songs. He said, you are who you were when you got here. You can try to change, but that's only the top layer, which means he recognizes that we are wired in particular ways, especially concerning our giftings and roles in this life. And the truth of the matter is, and I hope a lot of you hear this, the truth of the matter is that the people who are quote unquote under you or beside you, whatever the scenario, it's not that they don't like you because that's just what comes with the position and people just have to adjust and you have to adjust and you have to adapt and things like that. It's because you are playing the wrong position. You're managerial as a person, which means that you are there to sustain a system and you do that well. You don't change stuff easily. You are dedicated to the system. You want to be there on time. It is wired in your nature. You've probably hardly been late in life because it's just the way you're wired. Things like that. You're that person in a visionaries or a creative position, which doesn't mean you can't be creative at all. I'm just saying the fluidity of that type of person and things like that is not there. The spontaneity, the creative aspect that should be there is not there for you particularly. And then you got the person that is more creative trying to play the managerial role. And people don't like you because you're just in the wrong position. And you got to learn how not to go after the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. There are some of you who are inside of jobs who should be in a position that is more intrapreneur driven, which means that you need to be able to almost have your own system within a system that's going to help the larger system do its operations more effectively. But you have entrepreneurial tendencies inside of someone else's company, and you find a way to make that work. There are also some of you who are entrepreneurs trying to work in somebody else's business, and people don't like you because you do not fit into whatever roles you're trying to play. This is not just people hating on you. This is not just life trying to be mean to you. This is God trying to warn you about you being in the wrong position. And the more you're open to getting yourself in the right position, the better off you're going to be. And you might have to go through a lot of positions in order to do it. Again, I said at the beginning of this, I had a problem with this for a long time because I didn't understand myself in a particular way. I don't know that I was ever a bad person, but it doesn't matter how good you are or supposedly are. If you're in the wrong position, it just never works out. Some of you can be in the right place. You could be at the right job and unhappy, nobody likes you, terrible things happening all the time that seem to be forcing you out of where you are. But it's not that you're in the wrong place, you're just playing the wrong position. And if you would actually get in a different position in the actual same place, everything would flow, your gift would flow, and people could appreciate you. But you're holding positions, you're standing in positions that are not allowing your gifts to flow. And what's needed for that position is not able to flow out of you because it's not in you. And so what people are looking for out of that position is just not there. And you need to give it up in order that the right person with the right gift be in that position, in that organization. And I want to reiterate this. So many of you are not in the wrong place, but your whole life would change if they could see the value that's really in you if you would play the right position. Some of you are filling out paperwork and doing numbers or assembling products or who knows what else. And where you need to be is in HR, human resources. So what you need to do is to step out of wherever you are, or if you're going to continue to work there until you get whatever qualifications you need to, if that's a degree or whatever the situation is, but move wherever you have the favor and get in the right position. And then you'll begin to notice that the same people who probably hated you before, not because you were a bad person, but just because you were playing the wrong position, who only got to see a measure of your gifts. Now, all of a sudden, everyone loves you because you're in the right position. And of course, some of you are just all the way off, You're singing and you should be a doctor. You're a priest and you should be in Silicon Valley somewhere. You actually should be working for Apple or whatever. You're a musician, but you should be on YouTube, something, making others laugh, fulfilling your purpose, your call. And you thought you were doing good before because maybe you were doing something you were talented at or something that you learned. And again, let me go back to what I was saying before with the people who are in the wrong positions and you're feeling insecure because no matter how much you study, how much you read books, it's almost like you can't fill that role. You still don't know what you're doing because when you're wired for the position, the knowing comes along intrinsically of how to do the job. And I know you don't believe me, but I'm telling you this is real. I know this from my own life. I know this from other people's lives. If you gave me a second or two, I could see it in your life and where it is. But that's how this works. All of the insecurity, all of the hatred towards you, not to say that you aren't going to have problems. And I need to reiterate that over and over again while I'm saying things like that. But again, the problems that you get will be worth it when you're actually operating in your gift. The problem is that when you aren't operating in your gift and you're being hated and you're unfulfilled and you're unhappy and you're pissing everybody off and you don't know what you're doing and you're holding the company back, all these things are just compiling all for your need to be out front. You don't know how to deal with the money. Everything's going under continuously. You've opened up a revolving door in this company because nobody wants to work for you with you being out of position. Now, again, this works both ways. And I'll get back to what I was saying. I didn't forget. Some of you are playing yourself too small within the organization. You're trying to stay the janitor, which is a good job for a janitor at heart, but you need to be the CFO. So you're playing yourself too small because that's where you will be able to spread your gifts and service others around you properly. And then others of you are just playing yourself, quite frankly. You want to be CFO, CEO, whatever the situation is, and you're not built for it. You don't have the capacity to carry something like that. But here's what I was saying. I guarantee you, you think you're successful now. You get in your gift, operate where you're supposed to, where you're meant to. Do what you're supposed to in life. Find out who you are. Find out your calling and align yourself. Put yourself in position to where those things can operate and be spread to the world around you. And like I said, you think you're successful now. Watch how much more successful you will be if you will honor the way that you were gifted to be in this world. It's all important. Don't get caught up in the trap that's set by the cheese or the pictures of whatever you see on whatever music video or wherever. That's cool for them if that's them. If that's their calling, cool. Doesn't mean that's yours. Doesn't mean it's mine. So quickly, what you're going to have to begin to ask yourself is, why do I want that? Because if the answer to that question is not so that I can align myself align my gifts, align my identity with the proper positioning so that I can spread my gift, my purpose to the world around me, then that's going to be the source of a major problem for a lot of people. You aren't just going to hold yourself up. You're going to hold up whoever's attached to you because you won't do what you're called to do. But that's the question you need to begin to ask yourself. Why do I want that position? Why am I in this position? And I don't even care if somebody else pushed you into it, just wanting you to continue to carry the family name. And we've done this for 30 years and nobody's been effective at it. But we just keep doing it over and over again, not being able to change anything about our family, health, status, anything like that. We just want to keep doing the same thing just because it feels powerful. I think people are actually respecting me, and they should because we have this title. Some of you are doctors and should not be. And trust me, when I go to the hospital or doctor, I can tell. Believe me, there are some people out here who can tell you don't have the grace for that job. People qualifying you because you passed the test has nothing to do with your wiring. Aligning yourself with your destiny from the inside out is what's most important. So you got to begin to ask yourself. I'll never forget, somebody asked me a long time ago because this person was trying to educate me at the time. They said, Brian, if you want to go buy a house, what are the three main things you need to be looking at in order to know where you should live? And I wasn't going to try to pretend like I knew something that I didn't know. So I just said, I don't know. And I don't remember the exact three things that he noted as the three most important things, but I'll just make them up. Actually, I know one of them was schooling. So the schools, the local school, how far, which school it is, their educational rating, etc. Let's just say he also said crime and community, having to do with how far it is from things you need to be, in his mind, close to. Let's say making sure you're not 40 miles from the nearest hospital. So he had those three criteria as what was most important when deciding where to live. And I'll tell you the same concerning your position in life. You should be considering at least these three things. Who am I? My identity. And let me say this. A big portion of your identity is going to be the same as everyone else around you. First of all, you are human. You are body, soul, spirit. Three areas of concern there. You have both an earthly origin and a spiritual origin. And there's a lot I could go into all of that. But what this is going to align you with is something that actually humans should do. That's not going to rob you of your dignity as a human. All right. So right off bat, you should not be doing anything that is less than what a human should be doing. You shouldn't tie a rope or a chain around your neck and decide to go be somebody's pet, for instance. And I mean literal pet, not just figurative, because there are those too. So according to my identity, my giftings, my aptitudes, how I'm wired or what I'm wired to know from birth, I started walking in it before anybody ever taught me. I can tell you for myself as a musician, to me, that was a given aptitude because although I did learn from other people and took cues, it was also something that I could sit for hours and do alone and learn by myself, just sitting in front of the instrument. A lot of it just came naturally. I had the ability to make significant steps concerning my musicianship without, to this day, knowing how to read a piece of piano sheet music. Never learned it, but played piano professionally. So again, what am I wired to know? What am I gifted to do? And also, what am I passionate about? What is my calling? In what way should I filter these gifts to the world around me? Use those three things at least to locate your proper positioning in life. It should not be predicated upon something that's trending or a paycheck or the amount of eyes you assume would be on you if you did a particular thing. If you want a lot of eyes on you, you can go run naked in the street, and I guarantee you that'll work. You can prostitute yourself, and I'm not ignoring how serious of a topic that is. But if you just wanted to make money, you could go do that. But that does not mean that's what you are supposed to do, what you are intended to do in your lifetime in this world. Let me just point out to you really quickly that a lot of people marry for just money, for position, things like that, and doesn't tend to work out too often, if at all. And if they stay together for the sake of a tradition or an obligation or ritual, I'm sure it's not as much of a happy home as it should be. No disrespect. I'm only using it as a metaphor to say that we often marry careers, positions for the wrong reasons. And again, that's where you have to ask yourself, what are the reasons I should be in this position? The same way the guy was asking me about the house. He said it was 3 things that should denote why you stay in a particular house, in a particular area. You should not be looking outside of those areas because this ensures that you're in a proper, safe, effectual place that you're going to be able to enjoy. Use those 3 things as a person to qualify where you should position yourself in life. I cannot say to you how much it is damaging, not only your life, your legacy, those of your children, those of your children's children, and on, for you to ignore your calling, which you're actually good at, the position you should play, and trade it for bread and water, paycheck, company, attention, eyes being on you, whatever the situation is. You're going to rob your own future. You're going to rob your children and their future and what you should have been able to do for them and for yourself and for your family and for whoever else you wanted to do something for. The problem is the positioning. And I'll say this lastly, and I'll be done. This is something that you are going to have to do. Nobody is going to put you in your proper position. You're going to have to know it for yourself and do it for yourself. And this is something that I had to learn. People are more likely to put you where they need you and not where you should be on any given job, within any family unit, whatever the environment is. People have more of a tendency, because they are trying to survive, also to make you into what they need you to be versus what you need to be for your family and everyone else around you, not to mention what it's going to do for you. I'm not talking to be right. I'm speaking to you from my own experience. I'm here to be real. And the reality is, and it was for me, that it's something that you're going to have to do for yourself. People actually may not like you pursuing your purpose. Why? Because I can guarantee you there are 1,000 people around you right now who will not do it, who are too afraid to do what I'm saying is going to make you the most effectual person you can be in this life. Too afraid to do what I'm letting you know will press you and push you into a life that is full of fulfillment. And nobody that's close to you anyway are going to praise you and celebrate you. Not too often will people do that. They're not going to praise you and push you to do something that they are not currently or actively doing in their own lives. There's way too much jealousy out here. There's way too much, I want you to be miserable because I am out here, for you to expect that somebody's going to push you where you need to be. You're going to have to do that for yourself. You are going to have to reposition yourself. And you're going to have to take all the loss and all of the possible embarrassment or whatever that comes along with it. But fulfillment is better in the long run. Trust me, fulfillment is going to be better. And plus, you need to stop dishonoring everybody else's lives by doing to them what you're doing to them by being in the wrong position. If your cooking is killing people instead of healing them, you need to stop cooking. You're dishonoring not only yourself, but everybody around you. All right? It's okay. You can go find what it is that you do, position yourself properly, and prosper, because proper positioning breeds prosperity in all different ways. And your family needs to see you operate in the way that you were meant to, so that you can start a legacy. And not only that, hopefully a chain reaction of other people doing the same. They need to see you win in that way, even if they don't want to see you win in that way. Because I'm telling you, your family is not going to do it for you. Your preacher, your priest, your government, your boss, your job, they're not going to do it for you. This has to be a decision that you are going to decide and make for yourself. You got to do it, but it's going to be worth it. Proper positioning is the way to prosperity. You can bet on it. Well, listen, I hope you take this and you go and get positioned for prosperity. Because believe it or not, you do have to be positioned for prosperity, positioned for fulfillment. I remember real quickly, Steve Harvey saying at one point that if you want to be blessed, you got to stay on Faith Street. Well, listen, I'm telling you how to stay on Faith Street. You got to position yourself, get in the area of your gifting so that prosperity can follow you. It'll come to where you are when you're properly positioned. I believe it. Again, thank you all for listening. I can't wait to get back with you next week. I love and enjoy doing this. Spread the word. If you want to support, go to patreon.com/Brian Farr. Again, that's BRYANPHARR. Patreon is patreon.com/Brian Farr. Rate the podcast and also come back next week. I'll be here again, providing more content. That's what I do. As always, I pray that through this, that you would prosper. And until next time.